So I'm going to start with the Sermon on the Plain. And raising his eyes towards his disciples, Jesus Christ said thusly, "Blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God is yours. Blessed are you who are now hungry, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who are now weeping, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude and insult you and denounce your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice and leap for joy on that day. Behold, your reward will be great in heaven, for their ancestors treated the prophets in the same way. But woe to you who are rich. You've already received your consolation. Woe to you who are filled right now, who have big fat bellies, stuffed. Those of you who are stuffed, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will grieve and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for their ancestors treated the false prophets in this way." So the Sermon on the Plain is pretty clear. Woe to you who are rich, and blessed to you who are poor. Blessed to you who are poor, woe to you who are rich. Over and over again, Jesus says the same thing. Sometimes he says to be rich means you're going to go to hell. Unless you can take a camel and push it through the eye of a needle. If you are rich, you're going to go to hell. But if you're poor, you're going to go to heaven. Now, sometimes he'll say to the rich, it's about how you use your wealth, not so much by your class. But 80% of everything that Jesus says is, blessed are the poor, and to all you rich, powerful SOBs, you're going to go to hell. You are going to go to hell. So I'm still perplexed about this parable of the Minas, the parable of the 10 gold coins, the parable of the 10 Minas. It's about Archelaus. So you have this Archelaus, right? You got the Herod Gangrene, Herod Antipater, Herod Antipas, and then you have Herod Archelaus. And Archelaus is going to rule over Judea, Samaria, and Idumea for 10 years, from 4 BC to 6 AD. So the parable of the 10 Minas has to do with Archelaus. The parable of the 10 gold coins has to do with Archelaus. And I don't like the, traditional mainstream biblical scholarship on this thing, because they're trying to say that Jesus Christ is going to model himself after Archelaus. Give you some history. So Archelaus, he was bequested. You had Herod the Gangrene, the father, the old man, dies, and then he divides his kingdom up amongst his sons. And Herod Archelaus is going to get Judea, Samaria, and Idumea. He's going to go to Emperor Augustus and ask to be the ruler of Judea. And then Emperor Augustus is going to grant Archelaus an ethnarchy. So he didn't become king, but he became ethnarch. And then you're going to have the Herod Tetrarchy. So the father dies, and then you have the other little Herods, the 3 or 4 other Herods. I want to say Tetrarch, it's something about 4, right? So the kingdom is going to be divided into 4, but the Herods are still in power. And who's ruling Judea and Samaria and Idumea? Archelaus. Okay, so Archelaus becomes the ethnarch. And as soon as he becomes the ethnarch, he's going to slaughter 3,000 Jewish people during the Passover celebrations. There was a Jewish delegation that actually went to Rome to stop Emperor Augustus from giving the kingship to Archelaus. There's 50 Jewish leaders that go to Rome, that leave Jerusalem, go to Rome, because Archelaus had to get the approval of Emperor Augustus, and the 50 Jewish leaders had 8,000 Jews from Jerusalem who had signed the petition. And so at the very end of the parable of the gold coins, of the 10 minas, or the 10 gold coins, Archelaus is going to order for all of his enemies to be arrested and to be brought before him and then to be executed. So for people that say that the parable of the 10 gold coins is Jesus, why would Jesus put himself in the role of Archelaus? And then to think that Jesus is saying, if you don't believe in me, then you're going to get murdered. The kingdom of heaven is going to come in and usher a new world, and you're going to get executed. You're going to be left, not just left behind, but you're going to be slaughtered. It makes no sense. It makes no sense because Jesus over and over again says to turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. He who fights by the sword dies by the sword. So turn the other cheek. If you get hit, then just turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. He who fights by the sword dies by the sword. So nonviolence, pacifist. I don't even know if he even says self-defense. He almost seems to say no violence ever for any reason. You get struck, turn your face. Love your enemy. Even if they hate you and persecute you, love your enemy. Don't fight by the sword. If you fight by the sword, you'll die by the sword. So when it comes to the parable of the 10 minas, of the 10 gold coins, there's only really one good moral out of that story. The rest of it is just bullshit. The rest of it is wholly inconsistent with everything that Jesus had taught. There's only one good moral in the parable of the gold coins, and that one good moral is that if you're trustworthy when it comes to small matters, then you can be trusted with bigger matters. But the rest of it is just ridiculous. You got this nobleman, right? Just what, an oligarch. You get some, rich oligarch who goes to Rome, to a faraway land. It's all about Archelaus, right? So Archelaus goes to Rome, and then you have a Jewish delegation that follows after this. This is all in the parable. The entire parable is about an evil king. It's a devil. It talks about a devil. So you have this evil devil king who's very oppressive. He steals the labor and the harvest of the workers and the farmers. He's a thief. He steals from working people and farmers everywhere. He's an enemy of the people. And before he goes to Rome, he gave 1 gold coin to 10 of his servants, and then he only addresses 3 of the servants. The first servant said that he took his 1 gold coin and turned it into 10 gold coins. The second one turned his 1 gold coin into 5 gold coins. Then the third servant said that you are oppressive and you're, essentially a low-life, disgusting, decrepit, degenerate pile of crap. You are just absolute garbage. So he took his gold coin and he put it into his handkerchief. And then when Archelaus came back, he gave the gold coin back. And Archelaus is pissed off about this. He says, you gave me my gold coin back? How come you didn't even invest it? You could have put that gold coin in a bank and you could have got some interest. Instead, I gave you a gold coin and you just give me the gold coin back? Oh, you lazy and wicked servant. Does that make you a lazy and wicked servant if you save your money? If you save what little bit that you have, that makes you lazy and wicked? If you save what little bit you have? That makes no sense. That is stupid. He didn't steal the thing. He didn't lose the money, and he didn't steal it. So since he didn't lose the money, and he didn't steal it, that means he's, at worst, neutral, but he ain't bad, he ain't wicked. So the third servant says, you're a hard leader. So if Archelaus is a hard leader, Jesus says that his yoke is easy and that his burden is light. Jesus is not a hard leader. And then later on it says that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's the opposite of what Jesus says. The first will be last and the last will be first. So the rich and the powerful will become poor and the powerless, and the poor and the powerless will become rich and powerful. That's the opposite of Jesus. He says, woe to ye rich, blessed are the poor, and woe to you rich. The rich can't get into heaven unless they can take a camel and put it through the eye of a needle. The rich can't get into heaven. They can't be perfect unless they sell all of their possessions and sell it to the poor. They'll be rich in heaven and then follow Jesus. But in this parable of the 10 gold coins, it's saying the opposite. It's saying that the poor will get poorer. Even if you have nothing, they'll even take your pocket lint. They'll even take the lint out of your belly button. They'll even take the toe jam out of your toes. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So it's got a dramatic ending. There's a dramatic ending. Archelaus orders his Gestapo ICE goons to bring his enemies to him and then have them executed right in front of him. Jesus says, turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. He who fights by the sword dies by the sword. So what part of that message means that Jesus gets to line up all of his enemies and then to have them executed? When does that happen? That doesn't happen. This entire parable is just so antithetical. It's the exact opposite of what Jesus believes. So the mainstream scholarship on this thing is just absolutely wrong. When Jesus was talking about the parable, the 10 gold coins, the followers of Jesus would have known about Archelaus. Archelaus killing 3,000 Jews in Jerusalem. And it was a slaughter fest. When they killed 3,000 people, this is Herod Archelaus. When Archelaus had ordered 3,000 to be murdered, he's just killing people left and right. It's like a human sacrifice during a holy festival. They filled Jerusalem with dead bodies all over the place. The temple was filled with dead bodies. And then many fled to the mountains. So again, Jesus lives on with his Mount Olivet discourses. He says that when the end times come, go straight to the mountains. And the whole story, I'll actually get into that. 3,000 Jews are going to be massacred in Jerusalem. And what started all that, this is day 1, 4 BC. 4 BC, which is the same year that Jesus is born. So Jesus is born, Herod the Great, or the gangrene, the genocidal maniac, dies. Archelaus becomes the ethnarch, he becomes the new king. And he's going to order 3,000 Jews from Jerusalem to be killed. What started all that was a golden eagle over the temple was destroyed. So you had this golden eagle over the temple. It was destroyed, and then Archelaus had executed 40 children and 2 teachers because they destroyed the golden eagle over the temple. When Archelaus had killed 40 children and 2 teachers, that led to a public mourning. So now there's, masses are out there and they're sad. They're sad about the 40 kids and the 2 teachers that had died. And since there's this public mourning, led to demands for change. They said, we want some tax relief. We want the prisoners to be released. And we want the high priest to be replaced. And Archelaus at first had promised moderation. Archelaus at first was going to essentially give the protesters what they want. But then the protesters had stoned some emissaries to death. And then Archelaus just lost his mind. He lost his shit, and Archelaus deployed his entire army, all of his infantry, all of his cavalry, into the temple precincts at midnight while the sacrifices were happening, and he slaughtered 3,000 Jews in Jerusalem. During a holy festival, Instead of animal holocaust, it was a human holocaust. Archelaus also hunted down all the 50 Jews of the Jewish delegation that tried to stop his kingship, which was supported and backed by a petition signed by 8,000 Jews. But Emperor Augustus, oh, he's so wise, right? Emperor Augustus. Yeah, good job, Caesar. You killed the republic, you turned it into an empire, and now Augustus just picked this Archelaus to rule over Jerusalem, and he just slaughtered 3,000 Jews in Jerusalem. That's what the Romans did. And then 6 AD is when Quirinius is going to directly control the Archelaus territories. They changed the name to Judea. Archelaus is going to be exiled to Vienna and Gaul. So he's going to lose his kingdom. He got to rule for 10 years as an ethnarch, part of the Herodian Tetrarchy, which was established post Herod the Gangrene's death, that genocidal maniac, that massacre of the innocents of Bethlehem. Archelaus is only known for 2 main things that were decent, good. He rebuilt the palace in Jericho, and he also found the village of Archelaus. So let's go back to the parable of the 10 coins, okay? So let's do a quick overall summary of what the parable of the 10 coins are. Jesus and his followers are about to go to Jerusalem, and they're like, okay, when's this war against, Rome going to happen? As soon as we get into Jerusalem, is it just going to be, a bloodbath? Is it just, we're going to start fighting immediately? How does this kingdom of heaven come to fruition? And then Jesus says, all right, sit down, my children. Sit down, my flock. Pay attention to what I'm about to say. You have a nobleman who wants to become king, Archelaus, and he's going to go to Rome, but before he does, 1 gold coin to each one. One turns 1 gold coin to 10, one turns another gold coin to 50, and then the other one keeps the gold coin. He condemns the one that kept the gold coin. The one that turned 1 gold coin into 10 got 10 cities to rule, and then the one that turned 1 gold coin into 5 got 5 cities to rule. And so what that tells us is that if you're able to invest your 1 gold coin into 5 gold coins, this is what the tradition says. If you're able to use your faith and your talents in order to multiply the faithful, then you'll get your rewards in heaven. But that's only if you model, if Jesus has modeled after Archelaus. That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense at all. So the great thing about evil is that evil gives us an example of what not to be. You could see evil and you say, okay, no, not that. I don't want to be that. That's a terrible example. To me, that's the parable of the 10 gold coins. The parable of the 10 gold coins. Archelaus is unjust. He's tyrannical. He's instilling fear in everybody. He's harsh. The harsh reality of power dynamics. Archelaus reaped what other people sowed. He was oppressive. When 3,000 Jews were killed by Archelaus, many people fled out of Jerusalem. The Passover celebrations were disrupted, and they abandoned Jerusalem out of fear. So Jesus' followers would have known about Archelaus killing 3,000 Jews in Jerusalem during Passover. This is a popular story. So they knew exactly who he was talking about and what he was talking about. So to me, it just seems like the whole damn parable is messed up. Yeah, it's similar to the parable of the talents. But over and over again, Jesus says, blessed are the poor and woe to the rich. You're supposed to give water to the thirsty, clothe the naked, feed the hungry, free the oppressed, welcome the stranger, give sight to the blind, give voice to the mute, Give hearing to the deaf, if you're able to do that. Give comfort to the afflicted. Visit the sick. This is what Jesus says over and over again. He doesn't ever say, he don't even say defend yourself. He don't even say defend your family. He don't even say defend, your country or your fatherland. If anything, Jesus very much believed that he was going to be suffering until they killed him. So he believed in liberation through suffering. Maybe he thought that God would just intervene on his own. But he was going to get the kingdom of heaven to come in to usher in a brand new era by suffering out of love. He was going to turn the other cheek. He was going to get struck. And then if you think about his entire, ministry, when he walks into Jerusalem, he's sitting on a donkey. He's not riding a war horse. He's not riding a chariot of fire. And then his, 12 people, his motley crew of the peanut gallery. So Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey, and he's got 12 followers, nobody with any weapons whatsoever. And then he's going to get arrested without any resistance. Peter is going to take the sword and cut off the guy's ear. So he doesn't resist when he's getting arrested. And then when he's before Pilate, he's completely silent. And then he gets crucified. He died and was buried, and then 3 days again, he's resurrected, right? But he does all of this very passively. He just goes through the motions, right? Arrested in Gethsemane. He's arrested. Peter cuts off the ear. And then he says, he who fights by the sword dies by the sword. And then he heals that servant right away, which that would seem crazy to me if you're a Roman soldier and you just saw Jesus heal a man's ear that was cut off. So Van Gogh, Jesus would just, hawk to and put Van Gogh's ear right back together. If you were the Romans and you saw that shit and you still were like, I'm still a doubter. But we're talking about the parables of the 10 gold coins. And the parable of the 10 gold coins, the main point is that evil gives us an example of what not to be. Jesus said, turn the other cheek, love your enemy. He who fights by the sword dies by the sword. So at no point in time would Jesus order for his enemies to be lined up and executed right in front of him. That's what it says at the very end of Luke 19:11-27. Luke 19:27 has Archelaus line all of his enemies up, and then he's executed. I guess the mainstream biblical scholarship would say that even though the kingdom of God was not immediate, Jesus departs. He waits for the faithful to invest and multiply for the faith. And then there's a judgment, and sometimes it's harsh. So I kind of understand what they're saying somewhat. So if Jesus is Archelaus and he's got the 10 coins, so use your talents and your skills as best as you can. Do not let it go to waste. Do not let fear cripple you. Do not allow laziness or fear to cripple you. And then if you're able to build a great society, then when judgment comes, Jesus will smile upon you. That's what the tradition of the parable of the 10 gold coins says. But there's just so many problems. There's just so many problems with the parable of the 10 gold coins. It's in Jericho. So Jesus is sitting there preaching to his followers in Jericho. This is near where Archelaus had built a palace. And are they going to confront the Herodian Roman power with violence? Is there going to be a great cosmic war? Is there going to be a great battle? No. Matthew 5:39, turn the other cheek. If somebody strikes you on one cheek, turn the other cheek and let them strike you on the other cheek. If anything, Jesus is talking about being creatively resist but do so creatively. If the Romans make you carry all their shit for a mile, carry it 2 miles. And if a Roman asks you for your shirt, give them your shirt and your coat too. And if they strike you on your left cheek, turn your right cheek and let them strike you on your right cheek. So essentially just let them kick your ass without fighting back. The dishonest manager. You got several of these passages, which it seems like Jesus might be identifying with the bad guy, but then there's like lessons involved in it. So let's analyze each and every one of these. Does he ever perfectly align with the bad guy? And then sometimes you got the moral at the end, right? Is that the moral at the end? To me, Archelaus is an evil king. This is what earthly kings do. And so what is the lesson? Is there going to be an immediate battle? Is there going to be immediate bloodshed? Are we going to fight as soon as we get into Jerusalem? Let me sit you all down and let me tell you about a parable of the 10 gold coins. You have this damn king. He walks away, gives a gold coin to each of his servants. When he's in Rome, Emperor Augustus gives him the kingship, even though the Jewish delegation tried to stop him. He's going to hunt down the Jewish delegation and kill them one by one, and he's going to kill their families. And he's going to massacre 3,000 Jews during Passover in Jerusalem. So just because you could turn 1 gold coin into 10 or 1 gold coin into 5, and then the 1 gold coin stayed the same, he's a wicked and a lazy servant who condemns himself by his own words, and he takes the gold coin away from him and then he gives it to the one with 10 gold coins. Because the rich get richer and the poor get poor. None of this is Jesus' teaching. None of this is consistent with Jesus' main teachings. Archelaus reaped what other people sowed, so it was actually prudent to save the gold coin. Since Archelaus is just going to steal your profit, well, why profit? Why take the gold coin and make a bunch of money if he's just going to steal the profit? The third servant, who just took the gold coin and put it in a handkerchief, put it in a savings account, didn't steal it, didn't lose it. That was some quiet resistance to exploitation. To live by the sword is to die by the sword. Matthew 26:52. That's the arrest at Gethsemane. And love your enemies, that comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Turn the other cheek, Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, 39 to 44. So power corrupts. And in Jesus' kingdom, the earthly expectations is turned upside down. The last will be first and the first will be last. Jesus was a failed revolutionary who had some great moral teachings. So we're supposed to believe that the faithful are going to get to rule over the cities, and that the lazy and the scared get nothing. So use what God gave you while you wait for the kingdom with diligent, trusting service. Just keep plugging away, keep on working hard. Eventually, God will just hand it all out to you. Actually, the power works the exact opposite. If you think that hard work and loyalty is going to get you anywhere, then you don't understand power dynamics. The unforgiving servant. Okay, let's take a look at these other parables. So Luke 16, 1 to 13, you got the dishonest manager. He mismanages his master's property to lower the debts owed to the master in order to win himself favors. Eventually, the dishonest manager is fired, but his cleverness had won favors from the clients. And it's like Jesus is going to praise a cheat. So Jesus is saying, use your position in society to secure heaven. Make sure you get this, unworthy wealth It's okay to take money from the evil wealth as long as you use it to gain heaven. Is that what he's trying to say?